This webinar will provide us an opportunity as staff across the CGIAR to meet the new executive team. We'll learn more about what the team hopes to achieve, how it intends to take forward the transition to our one CGIAR. I'll now hand you over to our EMT. And Claudia, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Rose, and a warm welcome on behalf of the 3 managing directors to everyone who is online. It would have been wonderful to meet everyone in person, but we're excited by the opportunity to interact with everyone, at least virtually. We have, it looks like, almost 600 people online today. We can see from the countries that you're joining us from all over the world and all over the time zones. So thank you very much for those who are up early or up late in order to be with us today. As Rose has mentioned, we'll briefly introduce ourselves and then move on to the work of the EMT. So I'm Claudia Zadoff. I'm the Managing Director for Research, Delivery, and Impact. Before joining the EMT, I was the Director General at IMI, the International Water Management Institute, whom you all know, in Colombo, Sri Lanka. I also served on the System Management Board and was acting as the gender champion for the CG as well. So I've been deeply engaged in the work of the CG for several years now. Prior to that, I worked with the World Bank as a lead economist and global lead for water security and water resources. It gave me an opportunity to work primarily across Africa and Asia for many years. I enjoyed outside appointments and partnerships with organizations like the Oxford University, IUCN, OECD, and in fact, my first research job was with IFPRI. Elwin, over to you.
Hello, yep, sorry about that delay. It says enable to start video, so well, while we figure that out, I'll start anyway, since some of you will know what I look like already. Elwin Granger-Jones, I'm really happy to be joining this discussion. Okay, now co-host has asked me to do it. Great. Before this, I was executive director of the system organization, which is a role that I will still fulfill as a part of my wider duties. And that actually was 4 years. That time passed quickly. I was doing that role, working with many of you to get where we are today, which is, I think, a really exciting place. And then in my career before that, it spanned different regions, Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, the Caribbean, Eastern Europe, different organizations, UK, what was DFID, the UN, IFAD, and the Global Environment Facility, among others. And my roles sort of evolved. I think I spent the last 15 years of my career before joining CGIAR, working on climate and environment in different capacities in the UN and DFID and the GEF. So really delighted to be here and look forward to this discussion. Over to Kundavi.
Thank you, Elvin. I hope you can see me. My name is Kundavi Kadireshan. I am the Managing Director for Global Engagement and Innovation. Just to give a little bit of a background about me, just before joining CGIAR, I was the Assistant Director General for FAO. I was covering the Asia Pacific region, largely on food and agriculture. That was my agenda, and worked on some very exciting issues, ending hunger and healthy diets, the climate change agenda, the biodiversity, sustainable fisheries, One Health. A lot of them are very relevant for the CGIAR work. So I'm very excited to be joining, perhaps the member from the EMT coming from outside. But I'm also very pleased that I have been working with the CG centers, many of them, when I was doing my work at the FAO, and particularly with the IFPRI, where we put together a large global nutrition event in 2018 between FAO and IFPRI. And I was also closely working with the ERIT on one of their global event on rice. And ICRISAT, we were looking at working together on some large issues relating to healthy diets as well. So it's not new to me in that sense. But what motivated me to apply, having been at the World Bank for many years and then coming to FAO, the 2015 was the time when we had the SDGs and the Paris Climate Agreement. It actually put to the world the major challenges that we are as a collective human beings faced with. So in that sense, when I was just looking at the experiences over the years, there are so many complex challenges, the interlinked challenges, development challenges. And it became more and more evident, a lot of us working in the development sphere, that we need to be working together. We need to be much more focused on what we do so that we can have impactful results. We need more resources. We need more good ideas. And when I saw this, the CGIAR was moving towards one CGIAR and looking for an EMT, I was very excited because it had an ambitious agenda and it also had a whole set of things coming together. The reform agenda covered the overall ambition in terms of integration and bringing together all the centers together in a more collective manner so that we can do our business differently. So that was the reason why I was very excited to be part of this EMT, largely to be part of this ambition and also want to be part of that change. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to have this first meeting with you all and more eager to hear from you some of your fears and challenges and concerns so we can move towards this transformation in a thoughtful way.
Wow. Kundavi, Claudia, and Elwin, thank you so much for these great introductions. It seems like we have a large wealth of knowledge and experience that is coming together as the EMT. So Claudia, given that this EMT is it's the first of its kind in CGIAR, could you say more about the role this team will play and why it was created? We'd just like to hear some more in that light.
Thank you, Rose. So the EMT was created to provide coordinated leadership to this one CGIAR. And this is really the core priority of the executive management team, is to lead the transition to this new reformulated, reactivated, more integrated and impactful one CGIAR, which we believe will really be much better able to address the complex and interrelated challenges of the 21st century by giving us the flexibility and agility to deploy the resources and assets of the system. Those of you online, being the resources and assets of the system across our portfolio that much more effectively. The high-level vision of the one CGIAR was really agreed last year, and the EMT was appointed and empowered by the CG System Board to navigate the journey to that destination, to that vision of an integrated system, in line with the principle of adaptive management. So the EMT has been appointed by and is accountable to the System Board. The EMT was also conceived as an essential component to facilitate the work of the new unified governance arrangements for 1CG, where a majority of common members sit across all the center and alliance boards, as well as the system board. But in addition, and this is what you see on the screen now, collectively, our role as an EMT also encompasses these more specific duties to enhance the CG's research portfolio and impact, to enhance our organizational efficiency, and to enhance our partnership strengths and voice, as well as at the same time to help build a culture that is more integrated, more diverse, more inclusive across our staff. So you'll see that each of us has both our individual and our collective responsibilities, and we will discuss each of those in turn. Rose?
Wow. Thanks, Claudia. Now that we really understand what the EMT does as a team, it's also nice for us to know the respective roles for each of the managing directors. How would each of you describe your roles and what do you hope to achieve? I think I'll start with Kundavi. Kundavi, over to you. Thanks.
Yes, you see in the slide what are the sort of roles that the three of us will cover. But in terms of enhancing our impact and also scaling up our work, we need a lot of resources, a good partnership, and good ideas. And the start for that would be the research strategy that is now under preparation. A lot of background work has been already done, and this research strategy will actually define what we want to do, why we want to do, and how we want to do. So in that sense, getting more funding resources to realize that ambition is what I would see as a critical part of my responsibilities. We also know that CGIAR is not about doing it all alone. So therefore, both in terms of our capacity and our comparative advantage, we need to see what we can do, and then we need to complement and join hands with other partners. Therefore, the impact that we bring on the ground is more than what we are doing today. And it is in that sense where I see a lot of it in terms of building good partnership with not only the partners that we are working now, but with more new players, with a lot more enhanced work with private sector and the National Agriculture Research System. It is also in that sense, advocacy of this one CGIAR will become a big part of it. We will be looking at how effective we can as one coordinated CGIAR, the one CGIAR message is getting out to the larger group. And another important part of my responsibility I see is the country engagement, the regional engagement. As I understand, so far we have been very fragmented in terms of our engagement at the country level. So in responding to country demands in a more systematic way is something that we would be looking at in a building in a very coherent manner. So therefore, good country engagement is something that a part of my responsibility, I see it as well. So those are some preliminary thoughts, and as I get settled, I'll get much more ideas in the course of the conversation, and this is also one part of that.
Wow, thank you so much, Kundavi. We can't do anything without our partners, so that is really well highlighted. Without wasting much more time, I'll hand you over to Elwin. Elwin, over to you.
Thank you. Yep. So I'm the Managing Director for Institutional Strategy and Systems. The main task I'll be starting with is the development of a proposed integrated operational structure. There might be some questions on that, so I won't say so much more about that now. To get that proposal put together for support by the System Board and the System Council, and to discuss that. And make sure we get that right, and also to support the implementation of that. An element of that, and that's the second bullet on the list, is the design and rollout of one CGIAR policies and services. Really exciting opportunity area to do better, to be able to provide a better service, to look at where there's economies of scale of how we work together. Of which there's some past examples, but there could be many more if and when it's becoming when, not if, we are one CGIAR. The third bullet is about my role as the Executive Director of the System Organization. So there's a lot of ongoing work that's done. Sometimes it's not top of the radar, but when it goes wrong, it is. And that unit in cooperation with so many of you have been really great at having things not go wrong in recent years. So there's a lot of operational stuff around our financial management, around the way in which we organize our system board, what was the system management board and the council, that keeps this machinery moving. And that'll be also part of my broader area of supporting that process by supporting the system organization. Back to you, Rose.
Oh, thanks very much, Elwin. I think I'll go straight to Claudia.
Thanks, Rose.
Yeah.
So In my individual capacity, I'm Managing Director for Research Delivery and Impact, and my primary focus will be to deliver our 2030 research strategy, our 22 to 24 investment plan, which is the first 3-year rolling plan of that 10-year strategy, and to ensure that in the transition to 1CG, we still deliver strongly on all of our existing research commitments. This is commitments both to delivery of our research and to ensure that the transitions of all of our staff and research teams is very much at the center as we move forward and transition. To deliver the strategy, I will certainly continue to build on the very hard work that's been done by the the Transitional Advisory Group on Research, the TAG2, taking into account the tremendous input that we've received from science leaders, from the ISDC, from our funder partners, and the abundance of really important and insightful feedback that we received at the end of August on the first draft of the strategy. So the intention is to continue to consult with CGIAR colleagues and partners as we move forward and as we refine the strategy and the investment plan. And to me, this is extremely exciting. I know that we will deliver a research program that will have a more ambitious vision, a set of larger, more integrated projects, projects, people use these words differently, large, collaborative, integrated efforts that we believe will move the needle in the areas that we prioritize. Set a portfolio that will really inspire our scientists, but that will most importantly deliver real impacts for our stakeholders. It will build on our traditional strengths in plant and animal breeding, genetic gains, agronomy and farming practices. And it'll also build on our growing effort to embrace more systems approaches to achieve greater resilience and sustainability in the food systems, to leverage our food, forest, land, and water systems because they're part of the solution for food security, for climate, for biodiversity, for stable livelihoods, for better nutrition. So we are putting together a research agenda that'll give life to our new mandate, which I'm sure all of you can say by memory. It's ending hunger through science to transform food, land, and water systems. And in addition to that new mandate in a climate crisis, I almost failed that test. In a climate crisis is actually very important. We are working in a much more uncertain, less stable world than we had before climatically. And also a program of work that will make a real mark in all 5 of our new impact areas, those being food security, poverty, gender, environment, biodiversity, and climate. So we're looking at an incredibly ambitious portfolio that has a broad vision of the challenges that the food system both contributes to in terms of creating challenges, but also in terms of providing solutions. In addition to the basic portfolio, we will have platforms, as we do now, that draw together the cross-cutting themes across the areas of work that we're involved in, and growing partnerships, as Kundavi has said, that will help us to extend our reach and leverage our impact as we deliver this science. In addition to my function in terms of research delivery and impact, I also serve as the convener of the executive management team, and that means that I will work to ensure that the EMT works collaboratively and seamlessly as a team. And as you have seen from the description of our work so far, the importance of the interconnectedness of the tasks that we have individually, that is recognized by the fact that we will work and are working already very closely as a team to bring together the promise of the 1CG. Thanks, Rose.
Wow, Claudia, thank you so much. I think your role as convener is really, really powerful to make sure we work as a team. And thanks to the 3 of you as a team, so to say. We seem to be moving to an exciting moment during this transition to the 1CGIAR. However, there are key milestones we need to achieve in the months ahead. Cognizant of that fact, Claudia, looking ahead, what would be the immediate priorities for the EMT?
Well, it's going to be a very busy couple of months. As you see on your screen, it's a very crowded set of milestones and deliverables. In the coming weeks and months to the end of the calendar year, our primary focus will be on delivering the final version of the 2030 research strategy for approval in December, a draft of the 2022 to 24 investment plan, which will go to the board and the council for guidance in December, a proposed integrated operational structure, ideally for endorsement in December, and a really powerful resource mobilization strategy as well. In my focus on strategy and investment plan, I do think that we're making real progress in seeking to translate the agreed 1CG mission and the impact areas into really an ambitious new framework for moving forward. And in the coming weeks, we hope to share another draft research strategy with all of you for your inputs and insights on how we can build the strongest possible portfolio. In terms of the investment plan, which is the first set of projects that will span the years 2022 to 2024, we'll be setting out a prioritized set of large multi-year CGIAR projects in line with that 2030 strategy. And the investment plan will be particularly important as we begin our efforts to mobilize more and more pooled funding for the CGIAR. Rose?
Wow. Thanks, Claudia. I think talking about pooling funding and mobilizing, it's such a good point for us to hear from Kundavi. Kundavi, focusing on your portfolio as managing director, what are the priorities over the coming weeks and months?
Again, as just to build on what Claudia mentioned, the research strategy is where we are all now focused on, will be in the coming weeks. Because that's where the new emphasis, the new direction of the 1CGIAR will be putting it all together. So in that sense, the strategy combined with the investment plan will be our take to the funders and other partners to work together. So in that sense, for our at this point, we are as a collectively, we will be paying more attention to the development of that strategy and the investment plan. The investment plan should be appealing to our donors who are looking for a much more ambitious 1CGIAR. Therefore, we should also be making sure that the strategy responds to that. Similarly, we also need to be responding to a larger number of stakeholders, being the countries. Therefore, this research strategy also needs to be ensuring that we are responding to the demand of the countries. We need to be also making sure that the strategy is pulling together the partners, private sector more specifically, therefore civil societies, academia. So those are areas that the strategy will provide us the opening to engage with the new partners. So we are spending a lot of time, because then when we move out and open up our dialogue to present the strategy and investment plan, we will be able to make it exciting for a large number of other players to come and support us. Therefore, we are also, while we are working along that, we are also tracking what are the major events that are coming down the pike. Particularly use those opportunities to raise the profile of 1CGIAR. What does it really mean? We will be looking at very closely the upcoming, the UN Food System Summit, as well as the 50 year of CGIAR as a great opportunity to present ourselves as a 1CGIAR and what it means. Branding is another area where we will be looking at. Therefore, it is also an opportunity to position the 1CGIAR to the external players as well. All in all, ensuring that we also find innovative financing, innovative business models, innovative partnership. And it's not that they're not happening, they are already there, maybe in a smaller scale. And we got to go and try and build on what we are already doing and scale them up. And if other partners are doing differently, let's learn from them. So those are areas that we would be, I would be looking at more in terms of positioning ourselves as on the innovative and cutting edge areas that we are moving more strongly. And I think the last point I would really want to emphasize is the financing structure of our programs. One of the things that I hear people are very frustrated is the unpredictable funding, fragmented projects that are 1 or 2 years, that doesn't allow people to focus on the substance and quality of work. Our scientists and technical staff are more busy chasing for money than really focusing on their work. So how do we systematically change the financing structure of the whole system so that people can focus on their work and improve the quality, and thereby we become a much more impactful organization. So those are areas that I would be paying close attention to.
Thanks, Kundavi. I would like to hear some further thoughts from Elwin. Elwin, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the main tasks on our collective plate is also to take that research strategy and translate that in the spirit of form following function into an integrated operational structure, which is one of the key recommendations from the System Reference Group Council endorsed recommendations that we have to figure out and bring back to Council by the end of this year. And that's recommendations for an integrated, streamlined operational structure for CGIAR. We don't have, and 2 weeks into the job, I mean, I wish we could say exactly what that's going to be. We're starting to bounce around ideas. We've had some sort of accelerated, intensified induction, and we are now and need to and are coming to this one in a very intensive way. The intention and the phasing of these recommendations was actually to allow for the new system board and EMT, and working with our colleagues, to give them space to develop this operational structure. So while obviously it would have been much, in some respects, easier to have this all mapped out months ago, it was through deliberate intent that the space was given to the new leadership to be part of creating this. And now we're almost we're in that moment where we're needing to work on this very intensively. The recommendations are a good starting point on this one. There's some details set out in terms of the recommendations asking CGIAR to adopt an integrated structure, a streamlined one, comprised of a small number of operational units formed and led by the EMT, whereby the EMT would be created, and we've done that, and work collaboratively right across the system to build this new CGIAR operational structure. The centers within that, the language speaks of centers transitioning from self-standing institutions to the foundation and building blocks of a broader, dynamic and more integrated one CGIAR that maintains and enhances the center's key assets such as human capabilities, legal status, brand values and partnerships. Thus, Center Directors General will report to the EMT and obviously play a huge role, among many others, in ensuring business continuity as we go through what could be a significant transition that depends on the scope, extent and changes required for the operational model. So it's a really exciting bit of work. The point is that we can improve the alignment and try and bring together our governance, but we'll quickly be overloading that governance and that new system board if we don't also have a more integrated management structure, so we can actually take decisions and don't have to push everything up to that board. And so we can work, I think, more effectively as a team. A few key features, and this is really me speaking for myself here around what I would hope, and I think many colleagues would hopefully share the same view about what we want to see in this new operational structure. I mean, obviously the first is excellence. We want to have a structure that promotes excellent research and also excellent support for that research, all the services we provide, the funding systems that enable that research to take place, the methodological approaches that enable that research to translate into impacts. So that's obviously the first thing. The second is alignment, that we create a structure, an operational structure that actually delivers on this new mission, which is, using language such as climate crisis. It's using language such as food, land, and water systems. What's the best operational structure alongside the best project methodology, the best funding arrangement, and all the other ways we work together to be able to deliver on that ambitious strategy. The third is clarity. Let's just make sure we have clear and clean reporting lines. So where just people know where they stand, and decisions can be made when those decisions need to be made. Which takes me to the fourth point, decisiveness. My experience of the system in the past was that there was really good decision-making capability at the center level, but our ability to make decisions as a collective, it was really tough. And that was no criticism of anyone involved. It was just the way it was organized. And so in this new arrangement, one would hope we'd be able to take decisions more easily and more clearly, which does not mean that because we would have the ability to take decisions centrally when needed, that all decisions would be taken there. I think quickly the EMT would be drowning in complexities and details, and decisions are actually much better made by others in the system. So it doesn't mean centralization of all decision making. And next would be diverse. We'd want a diverse CGIAR. We'd want an operational structure which enables, promotes, celebrates that diversity, which is also diversity of skills and ideas. There's my sense of that system reference group was they were not talking about dropping a skill set or skill sets being redundant. They were really talking about how do we deploy our skills better to be able to provide more integrated and more complete solutions to our partners. And that's the range of skills we've got, which I would hope, and I'm sure we will celebrate, cultivate, and enhance. I mean, that includes our breeding work, our gene banks, our farming systems work, our agronomists, our work on soils, fish, livestock, landscapes, trees, water, course policy, our emerging work on digitization, the work we need to strengthen and are on gender, of course, climate, private sector. It's a long list, and actually that's our unique selling point, is our diversity. So we would not want to promote an operational structure which somehow suffocates or ends that diversity. It's really about deploying that diversity in the most effective fashion. And lastly, collaborative, a system that enables us to work more seamlessly together, less institutional boundaries, greater ability to staff, to move around different parts of the CGIAR in a more seamless fashion, which we think will make it a better place to work. So high expectations for this. Watch this space. We are starting to work with our system board on this. We'll be reaching out very shortly, and we're going to have to work very quickly to get something by the end of the year. My last point is the speed of this is pretty difficult. We can go super fast, we can go too fast, we can go too slow. And the fear of doing it too slowly is that this drags it out and it's a painful, overextended transition. The fear of doing it too quickly is we get some things wrong. So that is something else we're very conscious of too. Thank you, Rose, back to you.
Wow, that's a handful, but I can see an optimized delivery of our common mission, given that we have that global, being placed at a global scale. So if we have a more optimized delivery system, that would be great. Thanks very much, Elwin, and thanks to all the speakers. I think we've had a lot from the EMT. At this point, I would like us to get back to the rest of us as a CG Center. We received a number of questions via the Q&A function, before the meeting began. And we'll start with these questions, but still feel free to drop a question under the Q&A function below the page on the Zoom. Remember that these are being recorded, and we'll try to cover as much as we can given that time is not on our side. So I'll send the first question to Claudia. The three of you have degrees in economics. How will you ensure that the best practice bio and agri sciences will be included in the research agenda and investment plan? Over to you, Claudia.
Thanks, Rose. That's a very good question, and I can see where concerns might arise. But let me say, first of all, that the 2030 research strategy has already been through many months of co-creation. Through TAG 2, the Transitional Advisory Group on Research, we've had a group of board chairs, directors general, funder partners, and science leaders working together to begin to set the framework for the research strategy. This gave rise to the draft that has been shared with all of you in August, late July and August. So there has already been a lot of input from a range of scientists, not just economists. We actually had a great workshop earlier in the summer with all the science leaders and the ISDC. And as we move forward in finalizing the process, we will continue that collaboration and that input from all the science leaders and anyone who wants to contribute their thoughts. We will do everything that we possibly can to ensure that it's aligned with the best scientific knowledge. And triangulates, as the strategy says, it triangulates the science, the demand from our stakeholders, and the interest and priorities of our partners and funders. I should also say, though, because I don't want there to be too great concern about an economics-only executive management team, that while all three of us have trained as economists, we each have significant experience beyond economics itself. So with regard to natural resources, with regard to agricultural systems and agronomy, with regard to climate mitigation and adaptation in particular, these are areas where the three of us have done really quite significant work, policy advice, and again, we're an executive management team. But I think what's important, if there really is concern here, is that you understand we each have enough experience to know our limitations in specialized scientific knowledge. And we each have enough experience with the CG to recognize the extraordinary wealth of knowledge in the science leadership of the system. So no matter what the backgrounds of the individuals on the EMT wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't reaching out, consulting, engaging, and leveraging with the science within the community. So what I see is, yes, three people with background training in economics, but three people whose job it is to engage and leverage the science of the system. We don't presume to know all of it, but we do and will champion the science that is available within the system. And we'll continue in this collaborative process. And we do hope, therefore, that all of you will engage very constructively with us as we find both the right research strategy, the right operational structure to support that research strategy. As Elwin was saying, we are committed to form following function, and help us to tell that narrative and reach out to our partners and our funder partners, as Kundavi will lead our global engagement, to bring that full CG science wherever we go, wherever we're given a voice and a stage, to bring as much of the CG knowledge with you as you can. Thanks, Rose.
No, thanks very much. And I think it's important that you stopped at Kundavi. So sorry, Kundavi, the next question I'll put you on the spot. How would you intend to engage our host countries and governments with the One CGIAR, and how can CGIAR centers support this engagement? Just briefly, given that we don't have much time left. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, that's an important question, because what we do impacts and makes things happen on the ground. So let me start with the host countries. For the host countries that are represented on the board of CGIAR centers and alliances, I see that they'll continue to participate in the unified governance of the one CGIAR. Our board chairs and the board secretaries and legal experts are already instrumental in ensuring the host countries are fully briefed on the changes that are coming with the one CGIAR. So that's an important element that we need to continue to engage. The other thing that I see is, as already part of the TAG work, the TAG 5 has spent considerable effort in terms of looking at the design of an engagement model at the country level. So it's an opportunity also where government representatives have participated in that design. Therefore, as we flesh out the details, we will also find the country strategy, country coordination, and how the research strategy and modality is responding to the needs at the country and the regional level. So those are things through engagement with country partners, we expect to flesh it out. And I hope that will allow us to bring them along together and work along with them in this one CGIAR journey.
Oh, thanks so much, Kundavi. I'll send the next question, fair enough, to Elwin. What organizational structure changes should staff expect from the one CGIAR? I think let's focus more on the impact it will have on staff, given that we've had lots and bits and pieces on the other aspects. Yeah, so please, over to you, Elwin.
Thanks. Don't want to repeat what I said earlier. Perhaps to elaborate a bit, I would hope that a staff member of one CGIAR would have an even better set of corporate services at their disposal, where they're the client and it's centered around their needs. So our services around human resources, around IT, around finance, could be even better than they are now. And there's, I think, great scope to pursue what's in the recommendations for harmonizing CGIAR's policies and internal business services. And I appreciate this is a complex area, and the transition will be complex too, but I would hope that coming out of that would be really best-in-class services available to a CGIAR staff member. The second would be a management structure which is clear, which is effective, which can take decisions so people are not facing the kind of difficult ambiguity or inter-unit sort of kind of inter-unit or inter-center tensions that sometimes make working difficult. That we incentivize an even more collaborative kind of working arrangements and even clearer decision-making structures in that management chain. The third is that our working environment and culture continues to improve. There's been a lot of good discussion about gender and diversity, but we have a lot further to go. And we have a lot further to go to continually improve our working practices and our working methodologies. So I would hope that it would be, in that sense, also a better place to work in terms of organizational change. And fourthly, I would hope that we can be one CGIAR in terms of career mobility too, that when you work for one part of CGIAR, you have open to you a career path which includes the whole of CGIAR without this, moving from one completely different HR system to another. And we can actually have, therefore, more active talent management across the CGIAR that can give people more of those opportunities. We can help build that next class of leaders. So that's what I hope it feels like from the staff member perspective. I would add that also it's funded, right? Let's not forget that what is also behind all of this is a very strong message from our funders that unfortunately the status quo isn't really an option. And if we're going to talk about an integrated 21st century organization arrangement that can deal with things like climate change, they want to see us acting as one, not just delivering as one, but being one in how we organize ourselves. So I'd hope that through all of this, the staff members would have greater sense that this is a well-funded enterprise, that there's an even stronger future for it, and this is a really good place to work that can hold its head high and has a brand value that, you know, is not seen as something that hasn't perhaps changed sufficiently at the same speed as, or even faster than its operating environment, that's really ahead of the curve. And I'm seeing actually our reputation improve really exponentially as we've even gone through the last few years of changes. So I hope that reflects back on the staff member. What exactly it means in terms of where we draw the lines and the exact organogram, I mean, I think that's something we need to talk about very carefully, and obviously can't say what that would be like now, other than we're looking at the recommendation which speaks about a smaller number of operational units. But I think that we need to figure out in more depth, and I hope we can have clarity on this for that December council meeting. But let's see if that's possible. We appreciate that if we can find a good solution to this and a clear plan, the quicker we do that, the better, because it lets everyone know where they stand, or gives greater clarity to what now is difficult, because we don't have that mapped out beyond what's in those recommendations. Right to you, Rose, thanks.
Thanks, Elwin. I'll reserve my feelings at this point, whether to be excited about it or anyway, we'll come back to you, Elwin, on that. But the last question, the pre-received questions, I would like to give it to Claudia. What would be the greatest challenge to the One CGIAR process? And what do you bring to the job to help us overcome it? Like any new system, I think there would be challenges, but what do you envisage and how do we plan to mitigate any challenge? Yeah, thanks, Claudia, over to you.
This is a great question, and I think that it's a question that we all need to ask ourselves, clearly, appropriately asked of the EMT, but for all of us as we move into these reforms. I think the challenge for us personally is really to believe in the potential of the One CG and to commit to the potential of the One CG, and to raise the level of ambition that we have for the work that we do so that it meets and aligns with the global challenges that we're seeing around us. I mean, this decade to 2030, to the SDGs, the SDGs are historic. They're a globally agreed roadmap of the sort of world that we want to see. And they raise the game from the MDGs. They raise the game to say that not only do we want a world that is less poor, less hungry, less polluted, it says we want a world that is sustainable. We want a world that is more equitable. We want a world in which there's greater participation and voice for people. So we're looking at this 10 years, these very few harvests we have left, and trying to find how we, the CG, can contribute to these global challenges, to hunger, which is rising again, to climate uncertainties, which are accelerating, to inequity, which is being laid bare, to the species extinctions that are being predicted, to the planetary boundaries that we seem to be bumping up against in places. And all of this in a context where science is under attack. I don't know that we've ever seen this before. And where there are real questions about whether global efforts versus nationalism are the answer and the way forward. So we're in a moment that is extremely challenging, and the CG, I truly believe, has a real role in helping with these solutions, in providing solutions to some of these, to many of these urgent problems. We know that food systems have such an enormous impact on planetary boundaries, on climate mitigation and adaptation opportunities, obviously quite directly on hunger and poverty of the poorest, opportunities for youth, opportunities for women. there's so much that we can contribute in this decade. So what do we sort of bring to this effort? We need to bring a commitment to change so that we can raise our level of ambition and impact and influence and voice, so that we can come together as a system to provide those more integrated, complicated, bounded systems solutions to balancing the trade-offs that we're facing. We need to come together and be willing to make changes within the system so that we can make changes outside the system. And in the short term, this will require a certain amount of patience. We wish that we could bring to you all the answers today and answer all the excellent questions I've been trying to skim in the Q&A. These are all questions that we will take with us and work through in the coming months to try to build the system that can rise to the moment that we find ourselves in. So what I will bring is a deep sense of commitment to our mission, very open mind, and all my energy and goodwill. And I do hope that that will be met by you in the system. Thanks, Rose.
Thanks very much, Claudia. I think all you're calling from us is to be patient as you engage us and our partners at this point. I think I'll come to Kundavi. I think one of the key questions, again, that we have as staff and our partners is, how will the EMT go about mobilizing the resources we need to function as a one CGIAR? And let's face it, for sure. Thanks, Kundavi, over to you.
I think this presents an exciting opportunity. As I already mentioned, the issues are very complex and interlinked. So when we come as a collective group, we will be able to not only look at these issues in a different manner, but also come together to address these issues in a coordinated manner. So in that sense, even in the resource mobilization efforts, I see working together with all the centers, we can actually be putting together a more compelling message in terms of what one CGIAR can achieve. And some of the work that is already we are looking at in terms of the big issues, the big lifts as being talked about, will bring many of the centers together. And in the resource mobilization efforts, I see the centers working together with all their impactful work and taking it to scale, presents an opportunity to also make a good case in terms of resource mobilization, partnership, and visibility to the external world as well. So actually, I see this as an opportunity for the centers coming together and working on all these areas of communication, partnership, and resource mobilization.
Wow. Thanks, Kundavi. Either Claudia or Elwin, one of you could feel free to answer. Could you, as a system, let us know your roles in terms of responsibilities, accountabilities as EMT under the existing leadership? I think we'd like to hear that in terms of describing each of the EMT members' reporting lines at the system and then at the center levels. I think that's something that staff would like to know.
Elwin, please.
I can have a stab at that. Yeah.
Organizational.
Who we report to. The three of us report to the system board. In terms of the system organization, to get going quickly, there's been some change in reporting lines, so that obviously the programs unit, Sonia Van Willen, reports into Claudia on research. The funder external engagement, Andre Zanstra reports into Kundavi. The other functions reporting in to me, but very much serve the wider team. But in terms of the reporting lines then through the rest of the CGIAR, that's very much part of the operational structure that we need to work on and get right. The accountability is set out in the various descriptions of our roles, and we are held accountable actually as a team on these issues, and will be very much judged in that spirit. But again, I think we'll need to set out the accountability and the different levels of decision making in far more depth when we come to the clearer operating structure, because I think everyone wants to know where they stand and what kind of decision making authority they have and what their operating space is, and that's often when people thrive, is they know where they stand and are empowered to do so. Back to you, Rose.
All right, and thanks very much. At this moment, before I call Claudia to close, I would like to bring to the attention to the rest of the audience that would like to know what you're most excited about when it comes to the One CGIAR. So the poll is open. Please go ahead and put in your comments and answers. And at this point, I would like to hand over to Claudia to close while we share the results on the screen. Over to you, Claudia, and thanks very much to the entire EMT. Yeah.
Well, it is actually wonderful to see these words coming up on the screen. Very, very inspiring, certainly for me. Let me first just thank Rose for stepping up and moderating today's session. I think it's a great example of one CG that we found Rose in Uganda in her fish research world and brought her in to exploit her talents as a moderator. There are a lot of hidden talents across the CG. I want to thank everyone for attending. We have over 700 people on the line, again, from day and night across wherever you are. We're launching a period of really important change in the CG, which I think is just full of potential and opportunity. So we appreciate everyone's willingness to engage, the early opportunity to speak with all of you. And we're excited as an EMT to be working with all of you to realize the potential and the impact of the One CG. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful night, day, morning, afternoon, wherever you are, and we hope to be in touch again soon. Thank you, everyone.